Warning. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect that of the HHN TV or its constituent entities. Furthermore, some parents may not find this content suitable for children as it contains explicit language and subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, everybody. I'm Drew Duncan. The show's fired up, and we are live. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Take a device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan, iTunes, iHeart. Wherever you're listening, I am there. Matter of fact, you could just Google Fired Up by Drew Duncan. Plenty to get to today. Obviously, we're going to be talking Florida State, Georgia Tech. We're going to be talking Mayweather, Gotti. We're going to be talking about Barry Bonds, what he had to say about not being in the Hall of Fame. We're going to be talking about the Rams. They are letting go of Ernest Jones, telling him that he can seek out a trade. We're going to be talking about Creed Humphrey and his $72 million extension. Yeah, I know it's late news, but Friday, me and Austin Ford went over, so I wasn't able to get to it. So we're going to be talking about it today. CJ Stroud, Micah Parsons, a little friendly jawing back and forth. Plenty to get to today, which really quick here. Look, I'm not going to spend any time on this. Obviously, I think everybody knows now Jim Harbaugh, Michigan, they have been informed by the NCAA that they are formally conducting an investigation on the alleged sign stealing and yada, yada, yada. This has been going on for how long now? They're going to get it done when they get it done. Jerome Moore's already said it, guys. Please respect us. This investigation's going to take a while. We just want to get this thing over with. We're going to cooperate. We have cooperated. We're going to continue to cooperate. It's literally what he said, basically verbatim. So, whereas I'm concerned until something comes out that is definitive from the NCAA or something that's breaking, that's huge, we're not going to get into it. Jerome Moore's already said that he's looking forward to the text messages being put out there, the ones that were deleted, which tells me what I had said before. If the NCAA really wants to go after Michigan, then they can get a court order and deleted texts are going to come from somewhere. There's that. Florida State, Georgia Tech. Look, I am going to double down on Florida State and Georgia Tech. It is not an upset. It is not an upset because literally, and I mean this, literally, Florida State had done nothing to prove their ranking. Week 0. This is not the same football team from a season ago that had how many guys go to the NFL? Travis is no longer your QB. Benton is no longer your running back. You've got Jared Verse. He's in L.A. right now as a Ram. Probably going to be starting on that defense. We're going to be getting into that, obviously, a little bit later on. The point of what I'm saying is it is literally not the exact same football team at all. Completely different quarterback. DJU is somebody that I have said over and over again I'm not necessarily impressed by. We don't know what this win or loss is going to look like in a few weeks from now. For all we know, Georgia Tech, by week 8, when I think people should finally have rankings, I don't think they need to be done by week 4. I don't think they need to be done any time before week 8. They might be a 4-4 football team by then. Meanwhile, Florida State could be 6-1, 7-1, or they could be 4-4 as well. We don't know what either team is going to look like for sure within the next couple of months. We have zero clue. It's literally one football game. I'm not backing down. I'm not changing my mind. And look, for the people that are commenting, I don't have any animosity. I know through text my tone probably sounds aggressive. I don't have any animosity. You don't have to agree with me. It's fine. I really don't give a damn if I'm being honest with you in terms of whether you agree with me or not. It's nothing personal, to be clear. It's literally nothing personal at all. It's just sports talk, man. And you could disagree with me, that's fine. But I will continue to disagree with a lot of people on this matter. It was not an upset. And what I really hate the most is what we see on Mondays when stuff like this happens, right? A team that was unranked beats a top 10 opponent. Now all of a sudden they're a ranked football team, and a lot of times that top 10 team will drop dramatically, either down to 24, 25, or completely out of the poll. Why? Because of one game. We don't need it right now. Had Georgia Tech beat Florida State and Florida State didn't have a rank in front of them, people just would have been saying, man, that was a hell of a football game to watch. One team just ended up being a little bit better than the other team. We'll see what happens going forward the rest of the season. But because there is a number in front of Florida State, it is called an upset by Georgia Tech. Shouldn't be. The term upset is wildly overused. I mean, you got teams that are ranked number 10 beating a team ranked number 3, and it's called an upset. No, that's a top 10 team in the country. And you're calling this an upset? Nah, I can't. And look, as far as the game goes itself, Florida State had plenty of opportunities, but Georgia Tech was just a little bit better in certain situations. You take one of the fumbles by King, and he shoved it out of the way, and then his offensive lineman was able to go and get it. You look at that play where that punt that had Georgia Tech backed up on their own 10-yard line before they engineered a 90-yard drive. How many guys end up losing that football from that hit? There were just some executional things. I felt like both teams could have tried a little bit more to push the ball down the field. But DJU proved that even when they tried to, he really wasn't that efficient with pushing the football down the field. A lot of throwing it away, not really going through his progression. I didn't like that pass interference call for a number of reasons. Number one, because it ultimately did have an effect on the game. I know that Georgia Tech wins the football game, but it does put Florida State in field goal position at the end of the first half. So it does affect the football game. And then on top of that, from a national standpoint, you're giving referees a position now to where they can make BS calls. I didn't like that. And then additionally, look, Tofeli very clearly had a hold of Brooks' face mask. So if anything, to me, we're going to go offsetting penalties or no penalty at all because it's guys jockeying for position. I don't give a damn if he doesn't get his head turned around quite quick enough in that situation. Because finally, the ball was really uncatchable. So there's that. And look, Georgia Tech took Florida State's best punch at the beginning of that football game and survived. They didn't waver. They didn't get down. They didn't think to themselves, oh, hell, the route is on. And you got Kirk Herbstreit going, oh, Georgia Tech's got to make sure this game doesn't get out of control, yada, yada, yada. It was never out of control. In fact, if you ask me, Georgia Tech, really from that moment on, was pretty much in control of the football game for a good majority of it. Even though the third quarter got really defensive, I felt like that was partially due to play calling. But at the end of the day, for me, the offensive line from Georgia Tech, the running game from Georgia Tech, and the defensive line from Georgia Tech were the MVPs of that football game. Those were the game balls right there. They were getting a lot of pressure on DJU. They were in the backfield a lot for run plays. And look, Roy Dell's a hell of a running back. But even the best running backs, when you were consistently under that kind of pressure, you got to have some blocking. Georgia Tech, they did phenomenal with run blocking, even on plays where they weren't great. That backfield, they just didn't go down. They were looking for other creases. They were doing spin moves. They were lowering their shoulders and just going for it. A very physical football game from Georgia Tech. They were outstanding. Period. All right. Floyd Mayweather, hard pivot here to boxing. Floyd Mayweather, Gotti exhibition fight. Look, first, I want to get a couple of these things out of the way. Number one, people are talking about Floyd Mayweather ruining his legacy and all. Is he fighting for money and all this other stuff? Look, does he need the money? Hell, man, I don't know. I ain't in the man's pockets, and I'm not about to be. Doesn't look good, still fighting at 47, but then again, Mike Tyson's getting ready to do a fight at damn near age 60, so I understand that everything in context, right? We want, a good majority of people, I should say, they want somebody who's going to knock out Paul and end the madness. It is what it is, but still, he's going to be damn near 60 when this fight finally happens, if it does happen in November. So if we're going to be cool with that, regardless of the situation, better be okay with Mayweather at 47. I'm just saying. In terms of legacy, look, doubtful. I mean, he's already accomplished everything he needs to accomplish in the fight game. And let's be clear that there was nobody when he was Pretty Boy Floyd that could mess with him at his original weight class. And every time he moved up, clearly you are losing power. And so eventually you have to become an extremely good defensive fighter. I mean, it is called the sweet science. And Mayweather was a phenomenal fighter, whether anybody wants to admit to it or not. Do I think he's the GOAT in terms of fighting? No. I think there's fighters that have been way better than Mayweather. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't phenomenal in his own right. And Mayweather did change the game in terms of the financial aspect of boxing. And I don't think there's really any denying that. I'm not saying people before him weren't making money, because they were. But nobody was making money like Mayweather. Him and McGregor, from a financial standpoint, 110% made sense. MMA's top dollar guy, boxing's top dollar guy. Let's get together and make this thing happen. From that standpoint, it absolutely makes sense. In terms of the actual fight, the ref recusing himself, Mayweather having him fired mid-fight, whatever you want to call it, it is what it is. And how did this all begin? I mean, you've even got Gotti, what was it, third round? It's undeniable. Third round, about 1:17 in. Mayweather clearly, purposely hits Gotti in the back of the head. There is no denying that whatsoever. I'm trying to throw a hook. Nah, bro. At the bare minimum, some of those other punches, maybe not, but that punch was very clear and very intentional. You can't look to the ref to save you. Man, all that. It was extremely obvious that Mayweather was lighting him up in the back of the head. And for anybody who wants to say it's not that big of a deal, well, then you better go ask Pershod Kolan about that. Does anybody remember that fight? Got hit with all the punches to the back of the head a number of times. Brody can't even walk. Are you kidding me right now? And it's crazy to me because Mayweather, for all of his blustering about safety in boxing and for all the stuff that he's done with steroids and how the fight was delayed for so many years with Manny Pacquiao because he kept screaming from the rooftops, I'll bet Manny's not clean. I'll bet he's not natural. We need to get more tests. And even when Pacquiao said, dude, I'm willing to take tests, Mayweather was, oh, no, we need more tests. And I mean, I was so supportive of it. And here he is in an exhibition bout, nonetheless, clearly going to the back of the head. No. And then he wants to get mad at the ref and hoot and holler and all that stuff. Look, Broham, you know what you did was illegal. There's no two ways about it. And Gotti at the end of it could talk about respect and all that stuff all he wants to, and Mayweather still got it and all that, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. For the most part, Mayweather looked tremendous in that fight. And anybody who watched it knows that. But there is a bigger reality. Number one, it's an exhibition bout. So you're not going to see really anybody going after each other full. At least you're not supposed to. Number two, being an exhibition bout, why in the hell are you getting gully? You're not going to tell me that you didn't purposely hit him in the back of the head, because you absolutely did. I'm trying to. Over the top swing, downward motion, over the top. Man, you are not trying to throw a hook. Get real. I'm not buying it. I think anybody with a truly watchful eye shouldn't be buying it. And as far as my research suggests, I have not seen anything where a referee has recused himself or been fired or whatever the case may be in the middle of a bout like that. Never. In between rounds, that thing was a mess. And for anybody talking about Mayweather's legacy, I mean, predicated upon what we're looking at with this fight, believe me when I tell you, I understand where you're coming from. I'm not into it, but I understand. It certainly doesn't look good. But then again, it's not my ass that's on the line, is it? So, the bottom line for me here is very clearly that happened. And very clearly Mayweather got his way with the officiating. And very clearly the fight could have easily been stopped. Could have said, no, we're not doing this. We're not keep going with it. The fans can get upset and all this other stuff. But when you've got somebody throwing illegal blows like that, I mean, he had Gotti up against the ropes throwing those blows. When you are doing that, it is grounds for the fight to be stopped. And that's probably what the official was telling him. Hey, man, you want me to stop this thing? Because I will. Stop doing that. It's not scored. It's an exhibition. It is what it is. But we're getting dangerous, and dangerous on an exhibition. Kind of mind-blowing to me, really. I mean, Barry of all people, or, Mayweather of all people, that blows my mind. I mean, he's always been so concerned about the raps, the steroids, all that stuff. We're going to watch the rap. Everybody's going to watch this rap. It's going to be a very clear thing. I'm going to have my guy in there. He's not taking his eye off of that for a second. I mean, I'm with all that. And that guy is the one throwing rabbit punches. Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me at all. All right, speaking of Barry, moving on. Barry Bonds, during his ceremony, was asked about the Hall of Fame, and he just said, look, I just want to live to be 61. I'm over this. It's probably never going to happen. It is what it is. And, of course, as we all know, this is all steroid-related, right? Jose Canseco, he was the whistleblower on all of this. Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Roger Clemens is not in the Hall of Fame. Mark McGwire is not in the Hall of Fame as a result of all of this. Look, I don't know if I agree with Jose Canseco saying anything in his book, in court. I don't know if it was a guilty conscience that got the better of him. I don't know if he just wanted the spotlight. I don't know if he felt like he finally just had to go and do the right thing. Maybe he felt like he was living an internal lie, and it wasn't fair that other people were able to go and live that lie. I don't know. I'm not going to judge Jose Canseco one way or the other. There are a lot of people that hate him for what he did. And there are other people that are out there going, bro, he did the right thing. And one of those people is Joe Morgan, right? Let's not forget that he wrote a letter, what was it, in 2017? He himself is in the Hall of Fame, by the way. And he wrote a letter in 2017 to the voters imploring them, do not allow people with steroids or who have used steroids into the Hall of Fame. citing that other players have been coming up to him and going, man, I really hope they don't allow these guys in. Now, that was 2017, and don't forget, he released that on Twitter, that letter. Now, is there any correlation between what happened in 2017 when he wrote that letter and 2022 when the MLB officially voted to change the rules? I don't know. Because at first, the way that the ballots worked were if you got at least 5% of the ballots, then you were able to be on the ballot for 15 years. Then the rule changed, and you had to get 75%, and then it was good for 10 years. And so because of that rule change, more than likely Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Mark McGwire, and Sammy Sosa will never see the Hall of Fame. I mean, let's not forget that Pete Rose will never be in the Hall of Fame either. He bet on games. The MLB said to hell with it. We're not letting you in. We're not connecting you to baseball whatsoever. And all they wanted was an apology from Pete Rose. Now, I highly doubt that all they're going to want is an apology from Bonds and Sosa and McGwire and, Clemens for whatever the hell, I highly doubt it's going to be something as simple as that. Because to them, you're tarnishing our game. Well, look, PED use has been a thing and will always be a thing. I mean, let's not forget what happened to Buck back in the 80s when he set a record for the United States, for the Olympics, a world record. Beat it by half a second. But if you've seen that documentary where the testing procedure was horrendous, and to me, the most damning part of that, and by the way, it's a 30 for 30, it's on ESPN, it's called False Positive, where very literally they had skipped a number. And because they had skipped that number, they had put his as identified as somebody else. Oh, they knew what we meant. No. And by the way, it was a German female athlete that was actually the one who was guilty predicated upon the numbers. I mean, right now you got Jimmy G. He can't play 2 games for the Rams because of PED use. Alleged PED use, I should say. 2 games. Mark Hunt. Remember how mad he got with that whole thing with Brock Lesnar and UFC 200? He was upset. He was like, look, man, I'm in that cage with that man one-on-one. If he goes into a roid rage and I die, who takes care of my family? PED use has and always will be a thing. And there are people out there that legitimately believe that steroids should be legal. Now, me personally, I don't think so. There's HGH and all that new stuff that's come out that's supposed to be natural and just help you and all this other stuff. Look, I don't think that we're ever going to be able to stop performing-enhancing drug use. I don't think that we're ever going to be able to do that. I want to be clear. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be able to, but I don't think that we're ever going to be able to stop it. I'm not saying I agree with steroids in athletics because I don't. And that's because of Mark Hunt's point. But, lifetime bans and all this stuff that people start drumming up, you just look at King Ryan and the Devin Haney fight. Lifetime bans and all that. I don't know, man. Does it hurt the sport? That's the main thing. Look, to me, there are 1,000,001 other things that can tarnish the sport even greater than alleged PED use. It is dangerous. Roid rage is real, and that's why I'm with Mark Hunt. But I am not with Mark Hunt on if you get caught once, then you should be done with it. I mean, I interviewed Matt Brown that week when all that came out, and he supported Mark Hunt 100%. I lay it out a different way of thinking about it. He didn't necessarily back off of it, but he just kind of thought, well, maybe, but still, there needs to be some stern punishment. Stern punishment is one thing. But a lifetime ban and not being able to be in the Hall of Fame, I don't know. How long were you using steroids? I mean, that's kind of the thing, right? How long was this going on? Can we pinpoint? Can we identify? Do we know exactly how long this was actually happening? And maybe from the MLB's perspective, because that's too difficult to tell, because we don't really know, we just have to throw our hands up and say, to hell with it. And you couldn't get anything out of Barry Bonds. I mean, Cat Williams was talking about it, right? Barry would just, bam, another home run, no comment, you know? At first, everybody was never on steroids. Then everybody was on steroids. And it did hurt the game of baseball. Because it's kind of like, well, if you got to be hopped up for baseball, then what? And the other people that had no problem with it, they will tell you, well, look, man, you still have to be able to keep your eye on the ball. That's still a skill. Well, okay. But from there, once you make contact with the ball, now your skill is enhanced. That's also a reality. Because your strength is enhanced. And so because your strength is enhanced, now that you've made contact, you have given yourself an additional, and what many will say is an unfair advantage. Now that's also a reality. So are they justifiably being held from the MLB Hall of Fame? Look, they're not the only ones. You know, go look at Vontez Burfict. Granted, it wasn't PED use, but a lot of people felt like he was hopped up on something. All the hits that he had in the NFL. A lot of people get told you will never be associated with our league ever again for many various reasons. And I know that people who support Barry Bonds and support Mark McGwire and support Sammy Sosa and Roger Clemens, etc., they're going to look and they're going to go, man, these guys, these other guys, they get in trouble. You know, they get DV allegations. They get all this other stuff going on the outside. Look at John Jones. All this other stuff is going on the outside, but people still say they're the GOAT. Put people like them in the Hall of Fame in their respective sport. And people go, what the hell, man? What they did was victimless. It was harmless. Was it victimless? Was it harmless? Did you not tarnish records? Did you not give an unfair advantage to the other team? To yourself? You're going against somebody who's really great and you're making yourself better. Somebody gets on that mound and they go against you. It's supposed to be mano a mano, one-on-one. Right here. It's the guy in front of me. I just don't think that a lot of people understand both sides. And for this particular situation, I do. At the end of the day, do I think neither one of them should be in the Hall of Fame? I don't know that I'll ever be able to get a definitive on that. I will say this, and I mean this, and I'm going to reiterate it. I don't agree with steroid use. And I don't agree with steroid use because there's too many physical problems that could come along with it. You know, the muscle explodes, the roid rage, the side effect that it has on your giblets, the brain side effect. I mean, there's just too many other things out there that to me, I look at it and I go, this should not be allowed. And like I said, roid rage is very real, and you are compromising the health and safety of a lot of people that are around you. We're not just talking about the teams you're playing against. We're talking about the people that you have in practice, sparring sessions, whatever the case may be. It's a huge risk. It really is. But there are instances where there's a false positive, and that's the way that it is. But it isn't all the time. But it was just too late. It was too late. I guess we'll never truly know, will we? It is what it is. Moving on to the NFL, or the Rams. I cannot believe they are letting Ernest Jones seek out a trade. Look, I know that a lot of people are tired of dealing with this, man. Every year, some guy holds out. He wants more money. Look, somebody is going to pick up Ernest Jones. What do you have, 145 combined tackles and 77 solo tackles this past season? And look, he had played good up until then. I mean, I think he's got, 320 total over his career? But 77 solo is huge. And to put it in perspective, like I said, number one, Jared Verse, he's a rookie. So while there's a lot of great expectations coming from him out of Florida State, we don't really know what he's going to look like in the NFL. Then you take Boom and Young. Between the two of them in solo tackles, they have 90. It takes two of them to equal what one Ernest Jones did. And especially out of a 3-4 defense where you have to have a strong linebacking core. And look, Ernest was really great against the run. And not just against the run, but against running backs who are phenomenal out of the backfield with the catch and run. And one-on-one against guys like Alvin Kamara, C-Mac, who you've got to see twice. And by the way, you're going to see Alvin Kamara this season. If he's healthy, you're going to see Saquon Barkley this season. There's a good chance that you'll end up seeing Breece Hall this season when they go to play the Jets. Then you got Lobby with the Raiders. With that schedule that the Rams have, to me, that is a bigger risk than it is a reward. Now, again, here's all the things that I talk about. When things like this begin to happen, as a football team, you have to ask yourself, when you start to assess whether or not you are good with a player, are you better or worse with or without him? How big of a difference does he truly make on the football team? And look, the Rams got a pretty good linebacker room. It's fairly deep, but it's not deep enough. Not for a 3-4 defense, and not with the way that football teams spread out anymore and all that stuff across the field and the speed of these running backs now and the diversity of these running backs to just throw your hands up and say, yeah, we're willing to go ahead and take that risk. Me personally, I would have found a way to hold on to him. Now, I understand that Jared Verse and some of these other guys are about to get some serious dinero. I mean, Jared Verse's contract is steep. But you're putting a lot of hope into him because you saw what he did at Florida State a season ago. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. I don't know that I would have let him go because to me, your linebacker room clearly gets worse without him. And we always have to go back to this. There is a business side of the NFL, and it works both ways, whether anybody likes it or not. As much as it works for the owners and all that stuff, it works just the exact same way for the players. And Ernest Jones himself just said that. Look, I'd rather be somewhere. I love this community. I love being here. I want to be somewhere where I can just grow and settle down, but there's a business side to it too. That's just the reality. And the average career in the NFL is 3.5 years long. You got to get it while you can. Whether anybody likes that or not, whether anybody wants to admit to that or not, oh, fucking well. I don't like to get into another man's pockets, but I do support when another man decides to go out and get exactly what he's worth, what he feels he is. Again, I'm not saying there's not a risk in it. I'm not saying there's not a risk because there is absolutely the strong possibility that teams will find out what he wants and go, okay, man, your contract is up at the end of this year. We might be willing to give you an extension. We don't know, but we're going to have to see how you perform. Now, where would he fit in at? I mean, Frisco would be a good one, but Who the hell knows if they're willing to send him to a division rival? I don't think the Raiders wouldn't mind having him. Get him in there with Max Crosby. That could be a real dangerous defense. And with his mentality and the style and the way that he plays, I think he would fit right in with the Raiders. I think the Denver Broncos could probably use him at linebacker. There's teams out there that could use him. Believe me when I tell you. And now that everybody knows, a lot of phone calls are being made. I can promise you that. But they're going to have to assess everything too. Does he fit in the locker room? Is he going to fit in schematically? Do we get better with him? This is short notice, man. It's already the end of August. You got to get your guy in there and you got to get him prepped. Now, some guys know how to acclimate real quick, right? You get the situation like with C-Mac. You know, he got there, on a Friday, Saturday, played a couple of snaps with the 49ers, really didn't do much. They lose to the Kansas City Chiefs. But then they have a full week with him there at practice. What does he get? 181 yards total, rushing touchdown, running touchdown, throwing touchdown. There is the rare occasion where somebody comes in and just gets acclimated and everything works out perfectly. But for the most part, you need time. You got to get to know guys. You got to get to know coaches. They got to get to know you. There's communication levels. There's learning how to communicate with said player. All that stuff. Film room. Terminology. There's just so much to take in. So I'm not telling you that it's not a risk for the player, because it absolutely is. And if he sits out for a full year, well, that's not good either. And depending on how long this takes, it may help out the Rams' bargaining chip. But I don't see where it's going to take very long at all. I think the Rams are going to find a suitor for him very quick. Now, they've told him, you and your agent, you guys can go out and try and get a trade. Believe me when I tell you, the minute that was public, his agent's line was blowing up. I'd be willing to bet probably at least 10 or 15 teams immediately made a phone call. I'd be willing to bet the Seahawks did. I'd be willing to bet the Broncos did. I'd be willing to bet the Raiders did. I'd be willing to bet the Saints did. Maybe the Panthers. I bet the Buccaneers probably made a phone call. The Steelers, despite how good that defense is, they probably made a phone call. The Buffalo Bills, I know they got Von Miller, but man, when you could take a little bit of pressure off of Von and open it up for somebody else, and vice versa, I mean, why in the hell wouldn't you do that? You don't have Stephon Diggs anymore on offense, so you're going to have to really beef up your defense. I'd be willing to bet there's plenty of teams out there that made a phone call. Just saying. All right, real quick here. Creed Humphrey, $72 million. Look, when you have a Patrick Mahomes, when you have a player like him, when you have a player of that caliber, when you spend a lot of money on him, you got to protect him. Yeah, I mean, that is just all there is to it. You have to absolutely protect him. And over the last 2 seasons, Creed Humphrey has only given up 4 sacks. 4. 2 seasons, 4 sacks. Absolutely. And then on top of that, communication is a thing. Look, you're the Kansas City Chiefs. You're on the road in Vegas. You got to go silent. You need a center who is familiar with you, how you work, how you get down, that's got plenty of reps in with you, and you need somebody that you don't have to verbally communicate. He just knows exactly what you're going to do. Who can look back at you, see the hand signals, and know what's up. Communicating with his offensive line. smart enough to recognize blitz packages and all that stuff when the quarterback is already having a hard time calling everything out as it is. He's on the line of scrimmage doing audibles and all that stuff anyway. Do not get it twisted. While offensive linemen are the forgotten piece of the puzzle in the NFL, the reality is they are the most important piece of the puzzle in the NFL. I don't give a damn if you've got John Elway, Patrick Mahomes, whoever. They need at least a little bit of blocking. Go ask Russell Wilson. I'm just saying, great move by Kansas City. You got to protect your guy. You need that leadership on the offensive line. You need that anchor. Go ask the Philadelphia Eagles about Kelsey. I guarantee you, even after he retired, they were making phone calls. Bro, what's the number? What's the number? One more year. What's the number? I guarantee you. And especially with the way that Humphrey just set the market, can you imagine if Kelsey did decide to stick around for another season? What he could have potentially made if he wanted to play another year after this year? Whew. Astronomical. C.J. Stroud, Michael Parsons have a friendly little back and forth. I liked watching that, man. Parsons said, you ain't really played against no dogs. He said, man, you sitting next to one right now. C.J. for the win. Man, that was hard. That was tough. Look, I wasn't the biggest believer of C.J. Stroud. I really wasn't. I know it's only been one season, and I am 99% of the time not this guy. So I hope I don't have to eat my words. But I'll have to stand by it because I've already said it. To me, he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And you just gave him a primetime wide receiver. Forget about it. You look at how he turned that franchise around. Literally everything changed when he showed up. Everything. There was just a real energy that he brought to that football team. For my money, C.J. Stroud has maybe the highest up ceiling in the future for the guys that are in his bracket right now. The 1 to 2 year guys, to me, I think he's got the highest. Normally, I do not say things like this, but it was hard for me at the end of last year to not face the reality of, you got to throw your hands up at some point. You have to throw your hands up at some point, and you have to go, this dude gets it. This guy knows what the NFL is all about. And I'm somebody that's all for guys sitting out for a year, 2 years, maybe even 3. I am all for it. Man, I've said it a million times. People could talk about the sophomore slump and all that stuff all they want to. I think that dude is just too well studied to have a sophomore slump, especially because they are getting pieces around him. Look, they didn't do it with Deshaun Watson. Maybe they figured it out with C.J. Stroud. Look, we better do something. I mean, don't forget, they were trading away their best pieces. Now they're adding, as they should. You get a wide receiver like Diggs, man, that takes a lot of pressure off the running game. That takes pressure off of your other receivers and tight ends. That takes pressure off of your linemen because the defense is going to be, they're going to account for him. They're going to be backing off. That's just the reality. All right. We're not going to have time to get into what Rodman said about LeBron, but that's okay. Guys, I am Drew Duncan. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Take a device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan on iTunes, iHeart. Wherever you're listening, I am there. Matter of fact, you could just Google Fired Up by Drew Duncan. Obviously, we will continue to keep up with all things sports as the week continues to progress. Your local programming is next. Don't you dare touch that dial.